We're back with another episode of the Awards Whisperers. Oh my gosh, it's been a minute and we have so much to talk about.
We have 10 men to discuss. Well, probably more than 10.
I love 10 men at the same time.
It's going to be at least 14, I think. Because I don't think this is different from Best Actress. I feel like the crossover here is not as, we're not as in sync.
Yeah, especially on the back end, I think there's going to be a lot of possibility, which the
Correct.
more
Yeah,
the merrier, as I always say.
I was still changing these like this morning. So,
Yeah, I have my top three has stayed pretty much the same, but everything else has been wildly different day to day.
I have a top two that I'm kind of like, this looks reasonable. And then everything else, I'm kind of like, I don't know. But it's still November, and there's still like room for hope dating, and yeah.
Yeah, anything could happen.
We're gonna do this the same exact way we did Best Actress, as in we have them ranked. We have not shared our rankings with each other. So we're going to start at the bottom of the ranking and then work our way up. And then if one person appears on both of our ballots, we're going to then say where that person is on our ballot and then talk about it.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. All right. I started actress, so I feel like it's only fair if you start with the man.
All right, I'll start with the man's.
Man's.
Okay, my number 10 is Teo Yu from Past Lives,
All right. I do not have him in.
and I was going back and forth 'cause I do think he's a very shaky 10. But one thing I think I am anticipating happening is I think he will show up in some of the nomination lists during the Critics Awards run. So I think most of the Past Lives, as we talked about before in our last podcast, most of the energy is going to be towards the screenplay, I think, with some mentions of Greta Lee here and there. I could feasibly see him also getting into a few Critics Award lineups. I don't think he'll ever show up at any of the major awards. But when I tried to differentiate a couple of the other people that I had considered for 10, that's what kind of made him eke in at the last minute and get to the 10th spot.
Yeah, I feel like Past Lives makes sense as kind of like the nominee that we get every year that's only nominated for screenplay. More and more, I'm starting to feel like that it gets that and that's it. But it is, I think, a good prediction in the sense that, first of all, it'd be great if it happened, I think. Just for sake of, diversifying, the usual lineup that we get. And I think because it would probably mean that Greta Lee is also in, and probably much stronger than we were saying when we talked about best actress. It's a very understated performance, and it is not in English, and so there's that. But I can definitely see why, at least like in a lineup of like 10 people, why he would need to be there. Yeah.
Seen some promo for him since the strike ended on Twitter. So I do not anticipate him getting any major nominations. I don't think he'll get in, but I had to pick a 10th, and I do think he can show up in some of the smaller regional critics awards lists.
Yeah, and I can see that. And I can actually see him like stinking in like one of the bigger ones too.
Yeah, possible.
Like the Satellite or like the Globes or something like that. But yeah, I feel like 10 feels correct.
Yeah, so he also plays a 20-year-old with shaggy hair somehow. So there's a lot to like about his performance, but it is understated. I don't think without the name recognition, it's going to result in too much traction, but perhaps a little.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought him up because he's in the periphery of my 10, and I had the hardest time honestly with like specifically 10th place because
Mm.
um, the other 9 I feel like I might move them around, but I wouldn't drop any one of those out of like consideration. For the last spot, I was sort of rotating people in and out. I had for a while. I had Kingsley Ben-Adir, and then we were
Mm.
saying like this morning in chat. Actually, this movie does not exist anymore, and it's not
Yeah,
coming out until
goodbye.
like. And it's so bizarre to me because I feel like I don't understand why his career hasn't gone supernova yet.
For real.
It's
Yeah.
very bizarre where I when the year of 190 Miami, I was like, okay, this must be probably it. It's like a prestige movie where he plays a famous, like iconic historical figure. And then the Oscars actually did pay attention to that movie, but he got nothing.
Yeah.
So then he was in Barbie this year, what I would say like a fairly sizable role, the biggest movie of the year, and I think people don't even know that he's in it or like
Yeah. And
connect
he
the
was, I saw it
dots.
twice, and he was, the second time around, you notice how really, really funny he is. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
he's one of the best supporting characters actually in the whole movie.
Yeah,
Um,
for what I thought of Barbie, I felt like he was a very very necessary and funny presence
mhm.
in it. And then I was like, okay, so maybe he needs like a big biopic with like an established director, and then he gets the Bob Marley movie, and then it gets you know pushed
Yeah.
pushed to February, as in No Man's Land. Um,
We have this new trend of music biopics with the name of the person with a
yeah, it
hyphen,
gets like
with a
longer and
colon.
longer as the
Yeah.
Oscar I guess Oscar
The
season like goes
Whitney
on.
Houston presents the Whitney Houston one, I Will Always Love You Whitney Houston movie starring Whitney Houston.
That movie's title started, I think, as just Whitney, and then by the end, like in March, it was like a paragraph.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah. So yeah, I had him in for a while. Then I also had Nicolas Cage in
Oh yeah.
for Dream Scenario, but then if that movie looks a little too offbeat for me, I'm not sure. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, but I don't feel as confident about it anymore. So all of this to say that my number 10 is Christian Friedel for The Zone of Interest.
Ooh, nice.
Do you have him in?
I do not.
All right.
He
Okay.
was. I was going back and forth between him and Teo Yu for my 10. Um, I yeah. I might be wrong, but I feel like the zone of interest buzz is going to be more around Sandra and the filmmakers it's themselves. So I think maybe I was also a bit wary based on the turnout or the non turnout of the uh, All Quiet on the Western Front
Yeah.
actors. Um, so I don't know. But I'm taking over your explanation. Go
No,
for
I
it.
mean that's kind of like it's kind of like what you were saying. So I don't really think that he's very likely to get in. But I had to find someone to fill this spot, and out of the 3 people that I mentioned, I started looking at the movies, and I'm like, probably Zone of Interest is the strongest movie of these 3, so it
Mm-hmm.
would probably make sense to actually have him in over 2 people who would probably be the lone nominee from their movie if it even happened. Whereas Zone of Interest, I pretty much have not everywhere, but I pretty much have it kind of comfortably in a bunch of above and below the line categories. Um, and I'm fairly sure in November, but I'm fairly sure that it is winning foreign film at this point. So there's that, I would say. And also it is a real life figure, as unfortunate as that figure might be. And as I said, do I think it's going to happen? No. Is he in the conversation? Sure. I would entertain that. Yeah.
Yeah, for
And there's
sure.
a possibility, I think, that he gets shortlisted at BAFTA or even mix it in at BAFTA, which would then maybe, mean that he's probably not 10, but higher up in the list. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a great point. I could definitely see him getting in there.
yeah, BAFTA really loved All Quiet last year, and they were one of the main reasons why I kind of over predicted it in
Mhm.
the end. But I mean, it was still, I think, a high profile movie that got a bunch of nominations at the end of the day. So it
Yeah.
was, yeah, it was good on them for kind of like putting it on the map like that. But yeah, until I feel like until we have BAFTA, he's probably going to over this position like 10 or 9 or something like that. And
I think you're
that's,
probably exactly right.
yeah. Who's your 9?
Okay, my number 9 is Zac Efron for the Iron Claw.
Same.
Yeah.
Number
Ring the
9.
bell.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding. Um, I am very bullish on the Iron Claw for a couple of reasons, but one that being it is the saddest sports story maybe ever.
Yeah.
Um, and I know Zac Efron is not considered like a serious actor in the eyes of awards groups, but this could definitely be his breakout. And I think with the presence of Jeremy Allen White and how he's like the it guy right now,
Hmm.
um, I think they're if the reviews are decent to good, like I think we could start seeing Zach pop up.
Feel like it is gonna do, I think, better than maybe what we were predicting when we were talking about it in terms of even like below the line. This is a movie that I could see get into like cinematography or like editing or yeah. And so my thinking is that there is a little bit of a narrative in terms of Zac Efron because kind of like you were saying, not considered a serious actor, but more of like a movie star. And then this idea that, you know, it happened with Cher, for example, this idea that, you know, oh, they can actually act if you give him the right movie or if you give him the right material. So this sort of like blossoming into like a serious actor with that career defining role, again, a real life person.
Yeah,
um
and
i
I've
i
always said
feel
that
like
Zach,
that narrative isn't nothing. It is a
right,
thing that exists. um
and I've always said that Zach Efron is the 21st century Cher. So
yes. It's
no,
like,
but I agree exactly with what you're saying. I think that's a really brilliant insight.
but also I feel like the movie in general is really packaged like an Oscar movie.
Yeah, again, I feel like if there was a more awards tested or friendly actor in
Yeah.
the Zac Efron role, it would be getting a lot more
If it
buzz.
was like Jake Gyllenhaal, we'd
Exactly.
be
Yeah.
like, okay, he's in like the top 5 probably,
Right.
and probably gonna get
Exactly.
in. Yeah. Which I mean sucks because yeah, it just comes down to pretty much like name recognition and kind of like your career.
With these sports movies too, there's usually an element of like the transformation or like the physicality that they had to do, endured for the role. So I feel like there's a narrative that can build up to start beefing up his not just his pecs but his like acting bona fides.
And I would not be against this at all. I like him as a movie star. I like him as a celebrity.
Mhm.
He looks like a really good boy. And I mean,
He's a good boy.
yeah, I hope. I hope that the movie is good. I just feel like, especially with the scrutiny that he's been sort of under in terms of like just his looks and all of that, which has been, I would imagine, hard to manage,
Hmm.
that he gets a little bit of a break and people just start talking about his career and talent and movies instead of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's 35 now.
Yeah.
I think so. This is like the perfect opportunity, I think, to make that pivot.
Yeah. I'm starting to actually really looking forward to it. When is it coming out? Do you know?
I think it comes out in December,
Okay.
not
Yeah.
Christmas, but like mid-December, I
Yeah.
think.
Which is a pretty good, I think, release date for that as well. So I'm actually, I I'm putting like a little flag next to him and the movie. I think because we could be seeing a situation later on where it actually becomes a bit more of a player in a number of different categories.
Hmm.
And I just want to say that we were there in November, kind of throwing that,
Thank
out.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see a path where it like gets ignored by the Globes, but then has kind of like the late season boost as more people see it and more people start talking about it,
It feels
and
like a
then it starts
SAG
going up.
movie,
Yeah.
more than yeah. It feels like an industry kind of film,
Hmm.
just in terms of like the people involved, and as I
Yeah.
said, the way that it's sort of like put together and like packaged.
Yeah.
So
Then
yeah.
again, the Globes could want to, they're the star fuckers, so they could want to
Oh,
get Zac
absolutely.
Efron on the
Oh,
carpet. So,
I wasn't even thinking about that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Globes, I think, would always welcome him to
which,
kind of. They kind of
which do we
need.
know where the Globes are being? Is it like, are they just like doing a projection on a side of a building?
They're doing like smoke signals.
Like, because they don't have a TV deal, do they?
I'm not sure. So I don't even think that they exist anymore as like connected to the HFPA because that got dissolved. Now they're just like the Golden Globes, and there's no one, as far as I know, no one specific association attached to them. But I did feel like they were going to be on TV. Like I read it somewhere, but
Because I
I'm
thought
not
they
sure.
they weren't going to be on NBC, so I don't know where they landed. But maybe I'm wrong. I have to do my
Well,
research.
we're not a news podcast.
We are not journalists. We are
We're not
pinky
scientists.
pitches.
But yeah, I feel like so. Yeah, Globes and SAGs. I'm gonna keep an eye out because if it starts happening there, then it is something that I feel like has more of a narrative than people give it credit for.
Hmm.
Yeah. Who's your number 8?
Okay, so I the longest time I had Joaquin Phoenix around this spot,
Okay.
but then I saw the trailer, and he just seems so like they gave him a joint and then just like put on a Napoleon hat and are just like, okay, say something.
The whole story with this movie is that basically he showed up to like the director's house, I think 2 weeks out from the beginning of like the shooting, and it was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and it feels like that did not get addressed or resolved. So,
It's like it's
so it
just
was more of like a
jarring.
warning than like help me. It was just sort of like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and that's what we're doing for the movie. Just put me in front of the camera and let's get it done.
I feel like it's still him in what was the fake documentary that he did?
Yeah.
Like it's still him being like an exaggerated Joaquin Phoenix character, but then he has the Napoleon hat on, and it just I do not get it. So anyway, he got ejected very fast from my top 10.
Yeah.
So I have Anthony Hopkins at number 8 right now.
Ooh, I do not have him in, but yeah, he's definitely in the conversation. Yeah.
I was. It's funny. I had a couple of people I had here before. I had Barry Keoghan here,
Mm.
um, but something about I feel like just Anthony. I've known nothing about this movie that he's in,
Yeah.
but it's Anthony
Yeah.
Hopkins, and he's been on a roll lately,
Yeah.
and he's a recent double winner, and
Yeah.
it just feels like it could be a Willem Dafoe Eternity's Gate kind of thing, or a Bill Nighy Living, where it's just like he just gets in just himself, or it was one of their nomination or something somewhere, but because it's Anthony Hopkins and he's playing a famous person, people start checking his name.
Anthony Hopkins doesn't need to show up anywhere, like, and then so like, because he's like his own precursor. Is just that he's Anthony Hopkins.
Exactly.
So like he could just like show up like Oscars morning and to Leslie his way into the. Not that he would need Francis Fisher to do anything, but yeah, it's just sort of like in terms of like, okay, this just literally happened this morning and he was on nobody's radar. And I don't have him in, but I was just thinking this morning that if I were to extend this to like 11, 12 people, then he would be like right there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I just don't know a lot. And this might just be me. I just don't know a lot about or enough about the movie to really go one way or the other with it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know nothing about it, and I was looking at the other lists of possibilities, and the only other one that I feel like I may be misreading is Barry Keoghan and Saltburn, but I after seeing the Ferrari trailer, I was like, there's no way Adam Driver is getting in.
No.
I know nothing about that. There's apparently a David Strathairn movie. I know nothing about it. I haven't heard anything about it.
There is, but yeah, same. Yeah.
So yeah, Anthony Hopkins.
Sure. Is he playing like the real life figure in the movie?
I'm assuming he's Freud.
He is
Yeah.
Freud. Yeah.
Freud's last session. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Freud lived to be
It
pretty
is.
old, right? So
I'm sorry.
Freud lived to be pretty old, right? So I'm
Yeah.
assuming, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Again, completely makes sense, and he could show up at SAG. He could show up at BAFTA. He could actually show up places where, yeah, it actually might happen. But yeah, for now, my number 8 is actually Barry Keoghan for Silver.
I know. I think you could absolutely be right. I get, or you go ahead. I always talk when you say.
Well,
your
I
thing.
mean, the thing, and we started sort of like discussing this, I think like very first episode in terms of like returning nominees from last year / like this year, and how that tends to happen it tends to happen, I think, every year to a degree that it is one of the things that I try to factor into my predictions, as in, let's look at who was in last year and who's showing up in movies that could be in contention this year, and let's pull a few of those people to start predicting, because it happens every year. And then this year, it might realistically not happen at all. There's really only 2 people that could keep the streak going, and Barry Keoghan is one of them. And I think even more likely than Paul Mescal, who is the other possible returning nominee from last year. And again, Saltburn is one of those films where I've seen the trailer. I still don't really know what to make of it. As in, it could get a few below the line nominations, and I'd be like, sure. It could somehow sneak into Best Picture, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, sure. It could get blanked, and I could be like, yeah, makes sense. I have no read on it yet, but I feel like I think ostensibly, I don't know if we agree, but like I think he was pretty much the alternate last year in his category.
Yeah,
To win.
he for sure was.
That's how things kind of gel towards the end. So I feel like people are checking for him, and that the movie is like a prestige sort of like high profile vehicle. That I feel like it does exist, and people are aware of it, and yeah.
No, I think I honestly, like, I had my 10 and my 9, and then I was like going back and forth of just dropping Anthony Hopkins completely and putting Barry Keoghan in, or vice versa. But I think everything you said is absolutely right. Like, he has the sense of being the recent nominee who almost won. He's kind of his own. He's kind of an it guy now, not in the same way that like his co-star Jacob Elordi is, but people eyes are definitely on him. He's definitely an exciting presence, and I could definitely see that helping carry him. The reason I think I ended up dropping him was, I don't know, Saltburn's been giving me a Nocturnal Animals vibe. So, which I remember, I feel like it had a couple of Globe nominations and then kind of just completely fell off the map. I could definitely see Saltburn showing up in screenplay. But I do feel like the discussion of it is much more around Jacob Elordi, and not even for his performance. It's just everyone's obsessed with Jacob Elordi right now.
Well, it's because of Elvis, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if that helps or that hinders. I think it helps Kaylee Spaney and Priscilla,
Yeah,
because it gets eyes on that movie that otherwise wouldn't. I don't know if it helps Barry Keoghan in the same way, or if, I don't know. I just don't know what to make of it. I honestly don't know what to make of it.
On balance, I think it does help because it gets more eyes in front of it. I also think that it helps in the sense that he is not really the highlight in either film. So you kind of like go for him, but then you're like, oh, she's great. And Barry Keoghan is great again in this one as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, I think his kind of career is blossoming more in terms of like he's a movie star for now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and I mean also like Emerald Fennell, like she is a former Oscar winner, with some cred, behind her and all of that. I can't really parse the tone of this film. And I can't really decide if it's kind of like another kind of eat the rich kind of narrative, because those have become like really popular following Parasite.
Yeah.
But then none of them are nearly as good as Parasite. There's always going to be that benchmark to kind of have to live up to. And also, like, kind of like with Triangle of Sadness, I mean, that got in a bunch of, categories, but that had con behind it. And this one doesn't. So I'm not sure. It's more in terms of like it's him, and he almost won last year, and I feel comfortable kind of predicting at least one person from last year to come back. But I mean, and he's not even like in my top 7, so there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and talk to me tomorrow, and I might have him in for sure,
Yeah.
like my top 10 as well. So
Yeah.
cool. I think it's your turn, number 7.
No, your turn, number 7.
Oh, is it mine?
Yep.
All right. I have Paul Giamatti for Holdovers.
I have Paul Giamatti in my top 5.
Really?
I have him at 3. Yeah.
Wow. I dropped him.
All right, talk to me.
I just don't see the buzz for him right now. And the movie seems like it's really good and that people really like it. But the energy seems to be around Joy Devine Randolph. Plus, it doesn't seem like a role where he is surprising us. He's just being kind of the most Paul Giamatti he can. So it's less that I don't think it's a good performance or deserving performance. It's just given what the rest of the field, I feel like he's going to get lost in the shuffle.
That's kind of the reason why I have him in a way. Apart from the fact that I feel like The Holdovers is going to be way bigger at the Oscars than we were saying the first episode. It is a Christmas film from someone who hardly ever misses at the Oscars. It came in second at TIFF. It's winning like smaller festivals around the country. It won the one I went to, the Montclair Film Festival. There just seems to be a lot of love for it for what it is, as in a Christmas film, pretty much. And I feel like, in many ways, what you were saying about Giamatti is sort of like the fact that this is very much what the kind of performance that we expect from Giamatti is what gets him in. Mm-hmm. As in like the cranky kind of curmudgeon kind of, but with a heart of gold. Yeah. And if it is as strong as I think it is, and it gets in for picture, possibly gets in for director, it has that supporting actress nomination that could very well turn into like a victory. It gets in for screenplay. It'd be hard for me to even make a case that Dominic Sessa shouldn't be in the conversation for a supporting actor. And I think Giamatti is a former nominee, and I feel that it is a situation. It's kind of different from Sideways, where if you like the film, he is the lead, period. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is the kind of character where the entire movie is built on. So yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense, at least for me right now, to be like, he's, I'd say, fairly comfortably in. Yeah.
Gotcha. I think the one other element that trips me up is American Fiction and The Holdovers both seem like they occupy a same, I don't know, they're very similar, like comedy drama with like The American Man.
That's why I have them both in.
So I don't know if they both exist. And I think, I mean, that could all just be in my head. Maybe they're much different than what I sense because I haven't seen them. But that was another factor for me.
It feels like American Fiction is more in terms of like the social critique kind of component to it, whereas Holdovers is just kind of like your Christmas feel good movie of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably have different opinions once I actually get to see both of them. But
Yeah, it's gonna be.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't even know when they're coming out, but it's gonna be a month, I think. Until
yeah. But anyway, I woke up and I chose Giamatti Violence.
Good. Everybody should. My number 7 is Coleman Domingo for Rustin.
Oh, great! So he's my number 4.
All right. I figured. And it does make sense. I just need this movie to start doing something, I guess, somewhere where I cannot I can't really agree with people that are saying that he's gonna win. Because there are people out there that have him like at the top of their predictions and like, yeah, he's winning, done. And we were saying this, like the movie is a contender where, apart from here, because it's not getting in picture, it's not getting in director. It's missing, I think, in categories where we need that combo of actor and picture, or actor and director, or actor and a bunch of other acting nominees. It doesn't have that. It does not have that behind it. So that, yes, he could very well make it in. But I think that then the nomination is sort of like where it dies for him. And I just don't think that, from what I've seen, that the reviews are like strong enough overall to make the case that he can overcome the fact that the movie is just kind of there. But, you know, it could happen. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen. That's why I'm at him at 7. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting case because it does feel like it's he's the only thing they're talking about for that movie. Like I don't hear it in other discussions for other categories.
Just song.
Song.
Yeah.
But I also think between this and the 1-2 combo of him being in The Color Purple, being the main male character in The Color Purple, like he'll be on people's minds. And if the movie is good, he plays a real life character, which always helps. So I have kept him in. I had him at number 3 at one point, but he's down to number 4.
I'm glad you brought up The Color Purple because I actually think that if it is even like just passable, that I see him getting in for that over this, actually.
Yeah.
In
I could see that.
Yeah. Where it gets, because I'm assuming that if it is okay, that Taraji is probably in, then maybe it gets in for song. It starts getting in for some of the text. And then I could feasibly see a path for him to actually make it into supporting actor, because it is a fairly polarizing, iconic role. Yeah. And also in general, and we'll get to talk about this, I guess, when we talk about supporting, but there are people in this movie like Taraji where I just cannot fathom her not being excellent in anything she does, regardless of how the movie is. She just kind of exists in a world where everything she does is kind of great.
I would agree.
Yeah. So there's probably a case to be made that maybe the movie could suck and still get a couple of acting nominations just on the strength of, the performances themselves. And I feel like if you were to tell me he does get in one of the 2 categories, I'd be more comfortable guessing that it is supporting at this point for that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on the cusp for my top 5 for supporting. So, I guess I have to see what the broader reaction to Rustin is.
Yeah.
Once it comes out, but on paper, he's playing a famous historical figure. Yeah. He's an actor on the upswing. He's been in a lot of great stuff. He's been, circling something like this, I think, for a while, and he's finally got potential ticket into the upper echelons of awards chatter. So we'll see.
In many ways, I'm just kind of like managing expectations also, because I would love for like a gay black actor to win Best Actor. Are you kidding me?
That'd be incredible.
Like history. but
Yeah.
it I think that the bar for sort of like anyone who isn't like a cis white straight guy in Hollywood is like up here,
Yeah.
all the way up here. So I feel like if this was a biopic of like pick like an equivalent historical figure, but like white and straight, then
Yeah.
we'd be talking about someone
And
who's
if he was
comfortably
straight,
in the top five. Yeah.
his chances would be better.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. So I feel
playing
like
gay.
whatever hurdle might be there, it's like always like tripled for anyone who isn't like white and straight. So
Yeah.
there's also that, um, and also the fact that I haven't seen this movie and the reviews that I've seen are mixed, I would say. So yeah, but again, could easily happen, and I'm actually fairly certain that he's getting into the Globes and probably even at SAG. I wouldn't really imagine that BAFTA pays him any attention, but yeah,
No. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, we'll talk about BAFTA a little bit more when we talk about one of the other actors. But
yeah.
um, is it my turn? Your
Yes,
turn?
you're six.
Six. So my six is Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction.
Who is my number four?
Oh.
All right.
So I'm getting closer to the idea of him getting in. I think he's had such an incredible career. He's always delivers. Like he's always such a compelling and mesmerizing presence. And the movie seems to be really good. I don't know. It's that like comedy drama element that I don't see it succeeding as much in this category. They like big towering performances versus like again maybe I'm like extrapolating too much from like when Paul Giamatti got snubbed for Sideways.
Yeah.
Like the comedy drama, the lighter stuff is not seen as I don't know as challenging or impressive
Yeah,
in some way. So
that's just how it is at the Oscars. It's always been like that.
yeah, I think he absolutely he's a very close. Like my 5 and 6 are very very close. So I think he could definitely get in. But there's a reason I have my 5 as my 5 right now, and I'll explain it when we get there.
Yeah.
So he just happened to fall out on the other side of the bubble.
I have him in because, and I mean, I've been saying this like the whole time, just because American Fiction won TIFF, and that makes it a contender for, well, I wouldn't say like Best Picture win, but definitely I think in a field of 10, I think it is getting nominated for film, for Best Film, and it would, I think, then make sense that it also gets in somewhere else. Because off the top of my head, I can't really think how often do we get movies that only get nominated for Best Picture, period. So I was thinking probably safe bet in screenplay, and then probably the fact that Jeffrey Wright is getting such great reviews for it, and he has a little bit of a history of being kind of underappreciated, I would say, or under
Yeah,
rewarded when it comes to the Oscars or awards in general. Where I feel like this could be seen as the moment where we finally acknowledge him because he has a movie that we really liked behind him, and also I think for the sake of diversity, I cannot just predict 5 white guys to.
yeah. Well, I would love for him to get into like
Yeah.
I've always really loved his work. He's definitely overdue for this kind of recognition. It was just the math this
Yeah.
time for today. He just fell out of the top 5 for me. I could definitely see him being in for sure. I could definitely see him even like winning the Globe comedy and becoming and overtaking kind of Paul Giamatti and the comedy angle.
Yeah, because it's between the two of them, I think, at the Comedy Globe. I
Yeah,
would imagine that it is, yeah, either or. Um, so that's going to be, I think that's going to be telling. And I feel like both movies are kind of strong, equally strong at this point.
Yeah, it's hard to
I mean, 1 and 2 at TIFF. That's these are the two movies that came in first and second at TIFF. So there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more on the side of I hope it happens. It'd be, I think, just a good look for the Oscars in general to get to reward him at this point in his career for a movie that seems like it could do something.
Yeah. Again, talk to me tomorrow. I could have him at number 3.
Yeah, yeah. And I had him out for like a while, but then I think, after TIFF, I was like, I need to start reorganizing how I'm predicting these. And,
Yeah, I want to emphasize that I think like the top 7, or I would say like the top 2 to me are pretty much solid.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
3 to 7, it's like splitting hairs. And then 8, 9, and 10 are a bit of distance away from that group, I think.
That's the other thing, that we have like a 1 and 2 that are so, I think, set in kind of stone, and it's probably going to be either or that actually wins, that it's hard to then kind of do the math for the people that are behind them, because they're not going to win, and because you don't really get a sense of how people feel about other actors outside of those 2 performances. Yeah. Although, and I don't think this is one of your top 2, but my number 6 is Leonardo DiCaprio for Killers.
Oh, interesting.
Where do you have him?
I have him at number 3.
At number 3. Okay. Yeah.
But I have a caveat with him at number 3, but when I get there, but go ahead.
So the reason why he's down to 6 is that he's terrible in this movie. That must account for something, like when people are actually checking those names on those ballots, as in, oh yeah, I saw that movie and wow, he sucked. that's sort of where I'm at with it. I think he is more likely to get in than not, but and also I think parsing the history of DiCaprio at the Oscars, they do like him, obviously, but it's not like he gets nominated for everything he's in. Like, he's not Meryl Streep. He's at some misses where people were like, this is a huge snub, starting with Titanic. So I don't think that we're in a place where just because he's in a movie, automatically it means he's getting nominated. I think the discourse around the film is also sort of, I mean, at least the people that have problems with it pretty much have a problem with his character, and I think in general the point of view and the voice behind the film, which is very much kind of like him and centered around him. And also the fact that, him and De Niro, bless his heart, are just really bad. I think just 2 really bad performances. Bad. So yeah, I mean,
they're not great.
It's November, and at this stage, if I need to put this energy into the universe, I'd rather have other people in that I like more.
I appreciate that. So here's why I have him at 3.
Yeah.
And this is just how my brain works. I think if he gets nominated, he will be number 5. Like, he will. Yeah. He has no chance of winning. It's not a great performance. But if I'm looking at in terms of most likely to get nominated, Killers of the Flower Moon is just going to be such an overwhelming nomination machine.
Yeah.
And De Niro's, I think, going to be a big presence in supporting, because it's just the size of his role, and it's like the first big role he's had like this in a while, since because he did not get nominated for The Irishman. I think it's been since Silver Lining Playbook that he got nominated. That was his last nomination.
Yeah.
And then so I think with Gladstone getting in and De Niro almost certainly getting in, and DiCaprio just being the movie star, like he's one of the last like movie stars. I think people will just check his name as well. I do not think he has any chance of winning. So it's weird. Like, I have him at number 3, as in like he's 3rd most likely to get in. But even if he gets in, he's still, I think, easily number 5, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It makes a lot more sense than my reasoning behind why he's not in.
Oh, yours makes total sense.
Well, I
Like,
mean,
it's
mine
not a
is
good
mainly I
performer.
didn't like him, so sorry.
There's nothing likable about the character. He's not good in
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's not a great performance by him. Like, I can think of 5 better performances of his in the
The
last 10 years.
the risk of people that are, I think, getting in, but like at the bottom of that lineup is generally they're not anybody's number one.
Hmm.
And I think for the way that these are voted on in terms of like how the nominees are determined, you need those number ones. And I don't necessarily know that this is a performance that would get that level of enthusiasm behind it. As in, if we were just counting people that are on ballots, then yes, I would imagine he's probably going to
Yeah,
be on a majority of ballots, but probably towards the bottom, like you were saying, probably like number 4, number 5, and
yeah,
then the math does not work in your favor. So I
that's
think,
a fair point.
yeah, I think just in terms of like how we know the Oscars are determined, just in terms of like crunching numbers. I I'm not sure that it is the kind of passion, kind of performance that generates a lot of traction, where a lot of people like feel passionate about it. But um, it I think it's more likely to happen than not. I just don't want it to.
Yeah.
That's kind of yeah.
uh, Grumpy Cat's first nomination.
Oh yeah.
All right. Number 5.
Your turn.
That's my turn.
Yeah.
My number 5 is Andrew Scott for All of Us Strangers.
So is mine.
Yes. So here's why I put him in as opposed to Jeffrey Wright. I think he has, well, one, the movie has rapturous reviews. He is another person who's been putting in lots of great performances and some pretty high profile stuff. So people could see him as like it's his turn. But I also think the BAFTA thing is going to be key. So I think he's absolutely getting nominated at BAFTA. Plus,
Yeah.
I think he might actually be in the contention to win. Because I don't think, I think Cillian Murphy is going to win the BAFTA.
Well, there's a whole kind of history of the Irish curse at BAFTA and all of that. So that I think we might need to consider later on.
That is true.
Yeah,
But I think
but
Andrew Scott is the top then British.
he's the top British.
He's the best British top. America's next top British top. So I think he will definitely be in the running for BAFTA. Whereas I think I could easily see Paul Giamatti and Jeffrey Wright being left off of BAFTA.
Yeah,
Same with Coleman Domingo, unfortunately.
yeah,
So I think that may change the math late in the game towards his favor. Plus, I think he's going to show up. I could see him not going to be nominated at the Globes because the film's too small and he's not a big enough star yet. I could see him also missing SAG because maybe not enough people saw the movie. But I think critics are going to love it and give it a lot of attention. Plus the BAFTA, I think could be enough for a late season surge for him to get in.
I'm currently predicting him to get in both at SAG and BAFTA. Honestly,
Yeah, I think I could easily see him in SAG
feel
too.
like
He's like an actor's
he's
actor.
built enough cred. I think with his colleagues in general, with the acting branch in general, for people to actually check his name. But I think BAFTA is really where we see whether this is going to happen or not. Because you were saying, I think that if I'm looking at these people, honestly, I would not be surprised if he actually wins BAFTA at this point.
I could see a path for it for sure.
Yeah. Where it is, I think, or it falls in line with the kind of voting that they do, just in terms of like how they like their winners. And also, I think he'll be pretty strong in terms of critics.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, where he starts like showing up, especially critics that like roll out nominations, don't just pick winners. We're gonna see him kind of across all over the board.
Yeah.
I would say. I've seen the movie. actually.
I still need
And he is absolutely wonderful. I did quite love the movie. I have some reservations about the ending, but it is, I think, a very impactful film. I've never been in a situation, I feel like, and I mean, I've been to the movies a lot, where towards the end, especially, the entire theater was just crying,
to.
where I would like just turn in front of me, behind me, left, right, just people with like, their hands in their faces. Like,
Because they showed Paul Mescal's ass, right? That's what
yeah,
they were.
it starts really early and then you keep crying the entire time. Yeah.
It's just so beautiful.
It's so round. But no, I mean, it lands, I think, with that kind of gravitas in terms of people that watch it have a response. And this
Mhm.
is just like three people. It was like the entire. I was at a festival. It was sold out, and everybody was crying. So
Yeah.
there's that. I have him at 5 mainly because I feel like my brain is telling me that DiCaprio is more likely to happen. But my heart says Andrew.
Yeah.
So in November, I'm gonna go with my heart.
I
Yeah.
see like a, and granted, I've not seen all of Us Strangers yet, but in terms of like response, it feels reminiscent to Paul Mescal and Afterburn or After Sun.
Yeah.
Uh, but except for I feel like the thing that are going in Andrew Scott's favor is that he's already a little bit, I think, more high profile than Paul Mescal was, at least in terms of general awareness of him.
Yeah.
And the film seems to have more awareness of it at this point, at this stage, versus After Sun was kind of like the movie that kind of like people kept mentioning, it kept showing up in places, and then it resulted in that really beautiful nomination. I feel like there's just a little more attention already on the onset for this movie, which
Yeah.
helps it. The downside is I think the field is more crowded
Yeah.
this year than it was for Paul last year.
It is. Yeah.
But again, I'm the combination of him being a like a known and celebrated actor who's done some high profile celebrated stuff but not necessarily gotten the award season recognition, plus the BAFTA element, I think will be enough to get him in.
It's a good comparison. Because both of them, I think, started off as being more known for their TV work.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when it comes to Andrew Scott, he is very well known for a TV show that pretty much like walked the Emmys.
Yeah.
So I think there's that. It's also a director that has gotten someone nominated for an Oscar before. So I think that I feel like if we're looking at 45 years and All of Us Strangers, I think already is more discussed, or I think
Mm-hmm.
in the zeitgeist, people are a little more aware of it. Um, yeah, and I'm
I think
living in a
critics are going
world
to
where I
love
would
it.
love for two gay actors to get in.
That'd be pretty
It'd be
awesome.
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
Multiple gay actors for
Yeah,
playing gay characters,
yeah.
and it just not like just to wash the taste that's going to be in our mouths forever of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh my god. Yeah. Yeah. I'm still traumatized. Like, I feel like we're being kind of like asked to choose in a way. It's like it's either one or the other.
That's often how
Yeah,
it is.
and I feel like of the two movies, All of Us Strangers is just stronger.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So yeah, it is I'm perfectly fine admitting that it's more on the side of hope dicting and that DiCaprio is more likely to get in, but this is what I want in November.
I think no, I think you're spot on.
Thank you.
And I think so we already had our threes and our fours, right?
Yeah, so this was see he was also my number 5 and we already talked about my number 4 and my number 3.
Yeah, my four is Coleman and my three is Leonardo.
Okay.
So we're up to two.
All right. I think we have the same two in the same order, but I don't
I
want to
think we
assume.
do.
Yeah.
We have Michael Fassbender, Next Goal Wins, and Timothy Chalamet and Wonka. Great. Goodbye, everyone.
Done. Bye. uh,
Can we just say it? I'm pretty
yeah.
sure it's the
So
same.
number 2, Murphy.
Yep.
Number 1, Cooper.
Yep.
Yeah. It's hard to it's hard not to. However you spin it, it's hard not to end up with these two. In the yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
It feels like I still feel like Oppenheimer's the front runner to win Best Picture, and I feel like it might win not like wins total, and so Murphy not winning will feel a little odd. But the Maestro thing I think is just so inevitable that it's hard to see how they don't give it to B. Coop.
And I mean, this is just in November because I still think that we could see like then stuff happen that kind of like gets us in a different or takes us in a different direction. But um, Oppenheimer, I I'm assuming we both have it as the overall nomination leader.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's that. And I think Maestro is kind of like we were saying last time. It just is engineered to win as many Oscars as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the kind of movie that the Academy always like falls for.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of like
There's
complete
something.
empty biopic that says nothing, but there's makeup involved. And oh my God, he really looks like him. That's great acting. Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I would say if I were to choose between these two, I would probably then hope that Murphy gets it over Cooper, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like Cooper has it's just like the perfect recipe in terms of like how what best actor has turned into, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much.
It has because I feel like he just did his homework and was like, "What do I need? I need a famous American.
Yeah.
I need a prosthetic. Uh, I need like something big and showy, like an orchestra.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it in black and white. I have 9 or 10 how many other nominations he has? Like it's just everything is it's exhausting. Like
It
this
is
movie is
exhausting. It
exhausting
just
to me.
feels like they took like the last like I don't know 10, 11 winners of best actor and like threw them in a blender and this is what came out.
Right, exactly.
This is
It's
this is what came
bioengineered.
out. Yeah. With my
I think,
apologies to Anthony Hopkins, who I thought was great in The Father, but the category in general has turned into a fucking clown show.
yeah, other than Hopkins, it has been just a fucking shit
I
show.
Yeah, I feel like I can't remember the other one, but there's probably like two that I would save probably of the last like maybe 11 or 12 that I thought were like passable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had to really start putting that into my mindset when I predict this category because it's like just the fuckery reigns supreme here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I just don't see unless Maestro comes out and for some reason the critics are more split than they seem to be in advance, and it
The
doesn't. It would be a very tricky, complicated path for him not to win, is what I'm saying.
This,
Like,
if you look at the spread of Maestro on Letterboxd, which is my scientific method of ascertaining how good movies are, it's not that great. It is not that great, and it peaks, I think, mostly at like 3 stars.
okay, I
Um,
don't think it's going to be like a super loved movie. I don't think people are going to be like in
but
20
that's
years. Be
kind of
like,
the issue. It's like the kind of movie where even if it sucks, he's still gonna
no,
like.
yeah,
Yeah, it needs to be like watchable in order to
right.
get like a shit ton of nominations. And regardless of how good or bad it is, this is the kind of performance that wins.
Hmm.
Like, look who won last year.
Yeah,
Which I mean, Brenda Fraser, I love you, but come on, baby.
it's terrible movie, an
Yeah.
embarrassing movie on a lot of fronts. and it's just he's wearing a giant prosthetic fat suit,
He
and
managed to win without even like the whale in Best Picture.
right,
Like
that was the
that's how it
power of his
works.
fat suit.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I haven't seen Oppenheimer yet because I'm gay. But I need to get around it, and I have some of the same reservations in terms of it also feels like a movie that they pretty much just filmed the Wikipedia page for him. As in checking all these historical events in a sort of like sequence from like,
Mhm.
when he was born to then, yeah. I just am not a fan of biopics that have really nothing of substance to say.
Yeah,
I feel like Murphy probably put in a little more work as opposed to just literally glue a nose on my face and let's roll.
right.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing I've not seen Oppenheimer either, but the sense from what I've read and everything is like it. Yeah, there is definitely biopic trappings, but it does wrestle with his like immense guilt for what he did, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think it being like a summer release, and I don't see Christopher Nolan has historically been ignored by the Academy. It doesn't feel like it was made with the same severe intentionality as Maestro to win Oscars,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I definitely need to see it. I have no reason to have not have seen it yet, except for that I'm gay.
Yeah.
Um,
Same. And I mean, it could be like a movie that I end up liking and respecting and all of that, which great. I think in general, as I said, I'm more of a fan of biopics that actually maybe have a larger kind of thesis behind them.
Same.
And that might be the case. Again, I haven't seen it.
Yeah. I'm just less exhausted by the idea of seeing Oppenheimer than I am seeing Maestro. Maestro, like,
Maestro is going to be like,
I
yeah,
think about, yeah,
yeah, a whole like a whole day kind of situation where I need to take breaks and cry and yeah, and then yeah,
like if I think about Maestro for too long, I have to go lay down because it's
it's
too
just
much.
exhausting even just
It's
thinking about it.
exhausting.
Yeah,
Like think of another darling. Like that whole, I'm like, oh, that trailer is just like I need to go take a nap for
I need to go
45
vomit.
minutes.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, but I would say that just in terms of predictions, I would imagine that pretty much everybody has the two of them up there. Some people have Coleman Domingo, and of the three, I mean, I could only hope that they're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the likelihood of him beating both strikes me as it would take a miracle, but it'd be amazing.
I will say I don't think Bradley's going to sweep. I think it's going to be a pretty. I think there's going to be multiple performances that win big awards. Um, but because of Bradley Cooper's special relationship with the Oscars, like there's just I don't think there's anything stopping him at this point.
I don't think that critics will pay him any attention, honestly, or that the critics in general are gonna look at Maestro and feel like it is something that they need to acknowledge. I feel like when it comes to critics, I think Scott, Wright, even Giamatti, are much better
I would
positioned.
agree.
Yeah. I think critics are a little more discerning than that. Not all of them, because MBR, Top Gun, but I imagine that there's going to be, I think, a little more spread. But then, yeah, when we start seeing like SAG, the Globes, probably. I think even like honestly, if Scott doesn't win BAFTA and if Murphy doesn't win BAFTA, it's probably Cooper.
Oh, actor, the most boring category every time.
It's just turned into like such a shit show, and I think every year there's at least one nominee where I'm like, oh, you're actually really good, and I'm sorry that this happened to you.
Yeah.
And like starting from like last year with Paul Mescal, that was like I think one of the best performances that have been nominated in this category in like the entire decade, probably.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
And he probably came in last.
Yeah.
So
I would probably bet he was fifth too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just there's this just recipe that they cannot resist. They cannot resist themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. They fall all over themselves to reward just baffling performances.
Yeah, and if it is really between the two of them, I hope it's Murphy. I hope it's Murphy at that
Yeah,
point.
just because for some reason, yeah, I it seems again less intentional to win Oscars. Maestro just fucking exhausting.
I'm still annoyed with the whole like method thing of like, oh, he went through hell to put together this performance, and we were going out to the parties, and he was staying home because he was so committed. It's like, get the fuck over yourself.
Oh God.
Like, please, please. That's not even how method works. But also, like, let's not pretend that you like, save the planet with this movie because yeah.
Also, we need to get Fran Drescher on the phone and make sure that SAG strikes right before, like the day before Lady Gaga's press tour for the Joker 2 starts, because I cannot handle another.
I'm not even ready. I'm not even ready for
Handle it.
what that's gonna look like.
That I will walk into the ocean at some point, I'm sure.
We're like, I still feel like, and this is like, it's been like what, 2 years since like Gucci, 2 3
Yeah.
years, where I still feel like we're in a world where like she's like still campaigning for it and like juggling mozzarella balls or something. It's like it is. I'm not over it. I'm not over it yet. I'm not over it yet.
Oh God.
And I love her. I love her.
Oh,
I have her Vogue
I mean,
cover on my wall in my
she's
bedroom.
and everything except for acting and campaigning for her performances, she's amazing. But that one specific thing, she just becomes this unbearable.
Had I liked that movie a little more, I would have been so like into that, like her self like mythologizing kind of like narrative that she created for herself. I would have been all over that had the performance even been like passable.
Yeah.
But like it was so offensive and like unwatchable for what it was, and I'm like, I love you, but no.
It was like she had auditioned for a spinoff of My Big Fat Greek Wedding called My Big Fat Italian Wedding.
Yes.
And then she didn't get a call back. Like she was bad and they didn't get it. Like it was
like I was even like behind DiCaprio literally setting up a meeting with the Pope the year that he was going to win for The Revenant, because I'm like, I would do the same. I would fucking do the same. And that is like a boss as diva move. So good
I would
for
do
you
that,
for
but I would
meeting
do
the
it in
Pope
Melissa
and
Leo's
bringing
fur
your
coat.
cameras. But like Gucci was like beyond what I can even like stomach as
I'm still
someone who would do
recovering.
anything to win an Oscar. Like I can't.
It
Yeah.
is still the longest movie I've ever seen.
It's not over yet. It's still on.
It's
Like
not
it's
over.
still
I'm
on.
still watching it.
It's still on. Yeah. So I don't know why I end up like talking about this, but yeah, I mean it is I think very much in line, because I mean like Bradley Cooper is kind of like that to me, is just kind of
The
like,
hunger. Yeah.
yeah, and with nothing, you got nothing. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we did it.
We did it, and it's only slightly shorter than Actress.
Well, we'll be back very soon for both the supporting categories. We're going to do a deep dive on both of those as well.
Yes, because I have lots of feelings and opinions about supporting actress in particular, the way things are starting to come together. Yeah.
Same. I can't wait to talk.
All right. See you soon.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.